All right, let's dive in. Today we are tackling a giant. And I don't mean a giant in, page count, although to be fair, if you drop this book on your foot, it is going to hurt.
It will.
But a giant in terms of reputation. We're talking about Jane Austen's Emma.
It is arguably her masterpiece. And I know that is a fighting word for the Pride and Prejudice fans out there.
Oh, the Darcy Stans are going to come for us. But see, that is exactly why we need to do this deep dive.
Right.
Because I feel like for a lot of people, myself included for a long time, when you hear Jane Austen, you have a very specific image in your head.
You do. You think bonnets.
You think tea parties. You think bonnets. You think very polite people dancing in drawing rooms and worrying about who is going to marry the vicar. It feels, it feels cozy. It feels safe.
And that is the great deception of Jane Austen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because looking at the stack of research we have here today, we've got the original text analysis, we've got literary essays from The Guardian, we have academic papers on gender and marriage, and we even have some serious film critique of Clueless.
Which we have to get to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it turns out Emma is not safe at all. It's actually kind of a minefield.
It is. It's a revolutionary piece of literature. It changed how stories are told.
So that is our mission today. We are going to unpack why a novel about a wealthy, somewhat spoiled snob in a tiny English village is actually a masterpiece of experimental fiction.
And a detective story in disguise.
And honestly, a pretty sharp critique of power dynamics.
And if we want to frame the big picture right from the start, you need to note this isn't just a romance. In fact, the romance is almost secondary.
Really?
Yeah. This is a book about cluelessness.
I see what you did there. And we are definitely going to talk about the movie later.
It's unavoidable. But really, the concept of cluelessness is central to the novel. It's about the gap between what we think we see and what is actually happening.
Okay.
It's about the very specific dangers of having too much power and not enough self-awareness. It's about how hard it is to actually know the people around you, even the ones you think you know best.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the protagonist.
Yeah.
Or, as our outline calls her, the anti-heroine. Because usually when you pick up a romance novel, or really any classic novel, you expect to root for the main character immediately. You want them to be the underdog. You want them to have a struggle.
Right. Think of Cinderella. Or even Austen's other heroines. Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice has no money.
Zero.
She has to marry to save her family from destitution. If she doesn't marry, she is literally homeless.
Yeah.
Fanny Price in Mansfield Park is poor and dependent on charity. You root for them because they are fighting for survival.
But then we meet Emma Woodhouse.
Yeah.
And the opening line of the book basically tells you, hey, don't worry about this girl. She is fine.
It's one of the most famous opening lines in English literature for a reason.
Let me read it because every single word does so much work here. Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence.
And then it continues something like, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to distress or vex her.
So she's almost 21.
Yes, fact check, nearly 21.
It's basically the 19th century equivalent of an Instagram influencer who has it all. She's #blessed.
She is. She is the mistress of Hartfield. Her mother died when she was young, which sounds tragic, but in the context of the book, what it really means is she has no mother figure telling her what to do. Her sister is married and moved away. And her father, Mr. Woodhouse, is this gentle but completely neurotic hypochondriac who is terrified of everything.
Everything. Drafts, wedding cake.
Digestion. So he lets her do whatever she wants just to keep the peace. There are no checks on her power.
I found this fact in the notes really interesting. Austen herself actually said about Emma, I am going to take a heroine who no one but myself will much like.
That's a fascinating quote, isn't it? She knew she was taking a risk. She is writing a book about a woman who doesn't need anything.
Right.
And the key to understanding why Emma is unlikable to some, or at least problematic, is the money. We really, really have to talk about the money.
Yes, let's get into the economics of it all.
Yeah.
Because the text says she is rich. But, rich is vague. The sources say she has a personal fortune of 30,000 pounds. Now, in today's world, 30,000 pounds or dollars isn't never work again money. It's a nice car. Maybe.
Right.
So help us context switch to 1815. What does 30,000 pounds actually mean?
It is an astronomical fortune. To give you a benchmark, in Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy, who is considered the ultimate catch, effectively a billionaire in status, has an income of £10,000 a year.
Okay.
Now, Emma has a lump sum, a principal of £30,000. In that era, you would invest that in government funds, usually earning about 5% interest.
So she's making passive income. She's not even touching the core 30,000.
Exactly. She is pulling in £1,500 a year just in interest. Now, compare that to the Bennett sisters. If their father died, they would be living on maybe £40 or £50 a year.
Wow.
A respectable job for a gentlewoman might earn £20 a year. Emma is making £1,500.
She is a financial institution. She's not a person. She's an economist.
She is. She has the economic power of a very wealthy man. And that simple fact changes the entire stakes of the novel. Unlike almost every other woman in fiction at the time, Emma has absolutely no external inducement to marry.
She literally says that in the book. I have the quote here. She's talking to Harry and says, "Fortune I do not want. Employment I do not want. Consequence I do not want."
And she means it. She is financially independent. In a time when women were legal non-entities, essentially property of their fathers or husbands, Emma occupies this incredibly rare space of autonomy.
She doesn't need a man to buy her a house.
She owns the house, or at least she runs it as if she owns it. Hartfield is her domain.
So this creates a storytelling problem, doesn't it? If you have a character who has everything, money, status, freedom, where is the conflict? Where's the story?
The conflict comes from inside the house, or rather, inside her head. Because she has no real job and no real worries, she is bored.
Deeply bored.
And she has power. The source material notes that the real evils of her situation were having rather too much of her own way and a disposition to think a little too well of herself.
She's bored, she's rich, and she thinks she's the smartest person in the room.
Which is a recipe for disaster. When you have that much energy and intelligence and nowhere to put it, you start treating real life like a game. You start moving people around like chess pieces on a board.
And that board is the village of Highbury. Let's look at where this game takes place, because the setting itself feels like a character in this book.
It really is. Highbury, Surrey. It's vital to understand the geography here. It's 16 miles from London.
Which, to a modern listener, sounds like a commute. That's like, what, a 30-minute drive? An hour in traffic?
Right, but in the carriage era, that is a journey. It's a whole day trip. It's close enough that they get newspapers and fashion from London, so they aren't totally isolated, but it's far enough that they can't just pop over for dinner.
It's a closed ecosystem.
Completely. The scholarship we looked at notes that the population of the village is roughly 352 people.
352 people. That is tiny. That's smaller than my high school graduating class.
Imagine that. Imagine if your entire social world, everyone you could possibly marry or be friends with, was limited to 352 people.
I can't.
Everyone knows everyone's business. If you sneeze in the morning, the entire village knows about it by lunch.
One of the sources calls it a social commonwealth.
And within this tiny group, there is an absolutely rigid hierarchy. At the very top, you have the Woodhouses and Mr. Knightley. Mr. Knightley owns the large estate, Donwell Abbey. He's the local landowner, the top of the food chain.
Then you have the middle ground, the Westons, the vicar, Mr. Elton. And then you had the people who are kind of climbing up.
Yes, the rising class, like the Coles, who made their money in trade, which Emma, of course, turns her nose up at. And then Mrs. Elton, who is vulgar and nouveau riche.
And then at the bottom of this genteel class, you have the vulnerable.
Exactly. Miss Bates, who is the poor spinster, and her niece, Jane Fairfax, they have the social standing but no money. And Harriet Smith, who is illegitimate and has completely unknown origins, she's the most vulnerable of all.
I want to touch on something that critics call social claustrophobia or gendered space.
Yes.
Because for Emma, Highbury is kind of a prison, isn't it? Even for someone at the top.
That's a great observation. The sources discuss this idea of gendered space extensively. Look at the men in the book. Mr. Knightley rides to London on business. He goes to Kingston. He moves through the world freely. Frank Churchill rides 16 miles just to get a haircut, allegedly.
But the women.
The women are confined. They're stuck in interiors. Drawing rooms, parlors, the occasional walk in the garden under supervision. Jane Fairfax, a central character, cannot even walk to the post office in the rain without the entire village debating whether she will catch a cold. Her every move is scrutinized.
It's like living in a fishbowl.
Precisely. And that pressure cooker environment explains why Emma is so obsessed with everyone else's lives. She has nowhere else to direct her considerable energy and intelligence.
She can't run a business. She can't go into politics. She can't travel alone.
So she treats the village like her personal dollhouse. She has to dominate Highbury because it's the only kingdom she's allowed to have.
Which brings us to the revolutionary literary technique. Because you mentioned earlier that this book changed fiction. And looking at the Guardian analysis we have, it talks about how Emma is an experimental novel.
It ranks right up there with James Joyce or Virginia Woolf in terms of innovation, which surprises people because, on the surface, it looks so traditional.
It surprised me. Yeah, I just thought it was a story about a matchmaker. I didn't realize I was reading, avant-garde experimentalism.
It's the way the story's told. It's all in the narration. Before Austen, novels were usually either first person, I did this, I felt this.
Like Robinson Crusoe?
Right, or third person omniscient, where the author tells you everything objectively, like a god looking down on the characters. Austen perfected something different, something called free indirect style.
Okay, let's unpack that. Free indirect style. It sounds like a wrestling move or something. What does that actually look like on the page? I want to really nail this down.
It's like having a camera inside the character's mind, but you're still using third-person language. So it says she thought, or she did, but the narration itself is contaminated by the character's bias.
Contaminated? That's a great word for it.
It is. The narrator isn't telling you the objective truth. The narrator is mimicking Emma's own self-justification, her own feelings.
Okay, hold on. I want to try a little experiment here. Can we give an example? How do I spot this when I'm reading?
Yes, let's look at the kind designs line. This is early in the book. Emma decides to take Harriet Smith, this naive, illegitimate girl, under her wing. She decides she is going to be her project.
Right, she wants to improve her.
Exactly. Now, if this were a normal, objective third-person book, it might say something like, Emma decided to help Harriet because she was lonely, bored, and wanted someone to agree with her all the time. That is the objective truth.
Simple, fact-based. A little brutal.
A little brutal, but Austen writes it differently. The text says, she would notice her, she would improve her, she would detach her from her bad acquaintance and introduce her into good society. She would form her opinions and her manners. It would be an interesting and certainly a very kind undertaking.
Oh, wow. I hear it now that you pointed out. The rhythm changes. She would. It sounds a little manic, a little obsessive.
Exactly. That isn't a neutral narrator talking. That is the sound of Emma hyping herself up in her own head. She is selling herself on the idea. And this last part, certainly a very kind undertaking. That is Emma patting herself on the back.
So when the text says the plan is kind, it's not the author telling us Emma is kind. It's the author showing us that Emma thinks she's kind.
You've got it. The narrator is basically handing Emma the microphone and letting her dig her own grave. It forces you, the reader, to participate in Emma's delusion. We are trapped in her head, just like she is trapped in Highbury.
So the narrator is basically gaslighting us on Emma's behalf.
In a way, yes. And that's why first-time readers often miss the irony. They think Austen is endorsing Emma's behavior when actually she is masterfully exposing it.
We see this delusion of control play out in her matchmaking. She is convinced she is this genius matchmaker because her governess, Miss Taylor, married Mr. Weston.
A marriage which she claims credit for, but essentially all she did was introduce them and then smile encouragingly for a few years.
Right. It probably would have happened anyway.
Almost certainly. But now she's drunk on that one success. So she decides she is going to match her new project, Harriet, with Mr. Elton, the local vicar.
Mr. Elton, who is a bit of a social climber.
A total social climber. He wants a wife with a good fortune. But Emma completely ignores that reality because it doesn't fit her script, her kind design. And to do this, she has to actively dissuade Harriet from marrying Robert Martin.
Robert Martin is the farmer, right?
Yes. And by all accounts, and Mr. Knightley says this explicitly, Robert Martin is an excellent young man. He's respectable, he's hardworking, he reads, he has a good farm. And most importantly, he loves Harriet.
But Emma is a snob.
A massive snob. She decides a farmer is too low for her friend Harriet. Never mind that Harriet's own parents are a total mystery. She could be the daughter of a lord or a laborer. Nobody knows.
It's so interesting because Emma thinks she's being a good friend by saving Harriet from a low marriage. But she's actually ruining Harriet's chance at real happiness and security.
And the text lets us see this, but only if we read against Emma's powerful, confident voice.
Is there ever a moment where we break out of her head, where we get a reality check?
There's one very famous chapter. It's the only chapter in the entire book narrated from Mr. Knightley's point of view.
The blunder scene.
Yes. They are all in a drawing room playing a word game with letter tiles. And Frank Churchill, who we'll get to in a minute, pushes the letters for the word blunder toward Jane Fairfax. It's a secret, cruel joke between them, implying they almost got caught in a lie.
But Emma doesn't get it. She's sitting right there, and she thinks Frank is just being playful with her.
Emma is clueless. But Mr. Knightley is watching from across the room. And because we are briefly in his head, we see the scene with perfect clarity. He sees disingenuousness and double dealing.
It's like a splash of cold water.
Exactly. We suddenly realize, oh, wait, Emma isn't the master of this game. She doesn't even know the rules.
That leads perfectly into the next section of our deep dive. Because if Emma doesn't know what's going on, it means there's a mystery to be solved. One of our sources argues that Emma isn't a romance at all, but a detective novel hidden in plain sight.
It absolutely is. I am a firm believer in this theory.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. There's no body. There's no smoking gun. It's a village in Surrey, not a crime scene from a procedural show. Is that just academics trying to make a romance sound edgy?
I love that skepticism. But look at the structure. You have a central mystery. What is the real story with Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax? You have a series of clues scattered through the text that are completely invisible on the first read, but blindingly obvious on the second.
And you have a detective.
You have a detective, Emma, who is investigating.
She's a terrible detective.
She's the worst detective. That's the brilliant twist. Sherlock Holmes notices everything. Emma Woodhouse notices only what she wants to see. But the clues are physically there for us, the readers, to find.
So let's set the scene for this mystery. Frank Churchill is Mr. Weston's son from a previous marriage.
Right. He was raised by rich, snobby relatives, the Churchills. He's handsome, he's charming. Everyone in Highbury wants to meet him. And Jane Fairfax is Miss Bates's niece, who's basically the same age as Emma, but poor.
And incredibly talented. Jane is everything Emma is supposed to be. She's accomplished, disciplined, but without the money and the privilege.
So the clues, when you piece them together, tell us that Frank and Jane met at a resort town called Weymouth before the book even starts. They fell in love and got secretly engaged.
But they can't tell anyone.
No, because Frank's rich, snobbish aunt would cut him off financially if she found out he was engaged to a poor nobody.
Correct. But Emma is clueless to this. She thinks Frank is flirting with her.
And Frank is flirting with her, but only as a smokescreen to hide his real feelings for Jane. He uses Emma as a cover.
There are some specific clues that the sources point out. The piano incident is a big one. This is a key piece of evidence.
This is Exhibit A in the case against Emma's detective skills. A very expensive Broadwood piano arrives for Jane Fairfax at her aunt's small apartment. It's an anonymous gift. Now, logically, who sends an expensive romantic gift to a young woman?
The secret fiancé.
The secret fiancé. It's the only logical answer. But Emma doesn't know about the fiancé, so she has to invent a theory.
And her theory is wild.
She concocts this scandalous theory that the piano is from a Mr. Dixon. Mr. Dixon is the husband of Jane's best friend, a married man in Ireland. Emma literally invents an adulterous affair out of thin air to explain the piano.
Why does she go to adultery? Why is that her first thought?
Because it's interesting. A secret engagement is boring. A sordid affair with a married man is dramatic. It shows how Emma projects her own desire for excitement onto the people around her. And the worst part is she tells Frank Churchill her theory.
And he laughs.
He laughs too much. He's laughing because his secret is safe and Emma is so ridiculously, comically off base. But Emma misreads his laughter. She thinks, oh, we are sharing a private joke. He must like me.
She is just reading every signal wrong.
Every single one.
There's also the dream about the carriage. This feels like a classic detective story slip-up.
It is. This is the moment the suspect almost confesses. Frank is talking to Emma, and he accidentally mentions that Mr. Perry, the local apothecary, is getting a new carriage.
Which is big news in a small town like Highbury.
Huge news. But Mr. Perry hasn't told anyone yet. The only person in the village who knew was Jane Fairfax because she heard it in a private letter from her family.
So Frank could only know if he was communicating secretly with Jane.
Exactly. He catches himself mid-sentence. You can almost see the panic in his eyes. He realizes he slipped up. So he covers by saying, oh, I must have dreamed it.
I dreamed it. That is the lamest excuse in history.
It is. And the funny thing is, Miss Bates, who is right there, says, that's so strange because it's true. Jane got a letter about it this morning. A real detective would say, wait a minute, you dreamed a fact that only Jane knew. How is that possible?
But Emma just buys it. She misses the connection completely because she is too busy thinking about herself and how charming Frank is.
It's amazing because the information is right there in front of her. And speaking of information, we have to talk about Miss Bates. Miss Bates, the garrulous spinster.
She talks nonstop. In the book, her dialogue goes on for pages. It's just a wall of text about pork and apples and her mother's spectacles and the weather and a letter she got 3 weeks ago.
Imagine being stuck in an elevator with someone who narrates their entire stream of consciousness in real time with no filter. That is Miss Bates.
And because she is boring and because she is poor, Emma tunes her out. And honestly, the reader tunes her out. I admit I found myself skimming her paragraphs on my first read-through.
And that is the trap Austen sets for us. Because Miss Bates is the unlikely oracle. She provides all the factual clues. If you actually listen to what Miss Bates is saying, underneath all the chatter about baked apples, she tells you everything Frank and Jane are doing.
Really?
Yes. She mentions the letters. She mentions the times they were in the same place at the same time. She is the reliable witness that everyone ignores because she lacks social status and is, frankly, annoying.
That is mind-blowing. The truth is boring, so we ignore it. We want the scandalous story about Mr. Dixon, not the boring, factual story about letters from Ireland.
And that leads to the moral turning point of the entire book, the Box Hill incident.
This is a painful scene to read. I cringe every single time.
It's meant to be painful. They are all on a group outing, a picnic at Box Hill. They are bored, it's hot, and everyone is irritable. Frank Churchill proposes a game where everyone has to say one clever thing or two moderate things or three dull things.
And Miss Bates, trying to be a good sport, laughs and says, "Oh, I shall be sure to say three dull things as soon as I open my mouth." She's being self-deprecating. She knows she's a bit of a rambler.
And Emma just cuts her down coldly. She says, ma'am, but there may be a difficulty. Pardon me, but you will be limited as to number only 3 at once.
Ouch. She basically tells her she's too boring to even play the game of being boring in front of everyone.
The whole group goes silent. It's a moment of shocking public cruelty. And afterwards, Mr. Knightley confronts Emma. And this is crucial. He doesn't scold her for being unladylike or impolite. He scolds her for abusing her power.
He says something like, she is poor, she is sunk from the comforts she was born to, and if she lives to old age, must probably sink more.
He points out the power dynamic. Emma is rich, young, and clever. Miss Bates is poor, old, and dependent on Emma's father's kindness for things like gifts of pork. Punching down is not just rude, it's a profound moral failing.
It's the moment Emma realizes that being clever isn't the same as being good.
And that her words have the power to genuinely wound people.
That really shifts the conversation from just, manners to morals.
Exactly. It's not about using the right fork at dinner. It's about how you treat people who can do nothing for you.
This brings us to the deeper themes of the book regarding relationships and marriage. We have some interesting analysis here in our sources using a sociocognitive model.
Don't let the academic term scare you. It's just a fancy way of looking at how dialogue and relationships reveal hidden power structures in a society. The analysis suggests there are 2 primary types of marriage portrayed in the book.
So if I had to distill this for, a dinner party conversation, the first type is the pedagogic marriage.
Pedagogic meaning teaching. This is the model of Mr. and Mrs. Weston. Mrs. Weston was Emma's governess for years. She's used to pleasing people. She's described as docile or trained.
So the husband is the authority figure, and the wife is the student or the helper. It's the I married my teacher model.
Right. It's a very harmonious relationship, but it's not presented as a marriage of equals. But then you have the potential companionate marriage, which is what Emma and Knightley eventually represent.
Which is the I married my debate partner model.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Their relationship is based on affection, but also on correction. Mutual correction. Knightley corrects Emma, yes, as we saw at Box Hill. But Emma also challenges Knightley. They argue, they debate. It's meeting of minds, not just a transfer of property from father to husband.
But there's a weird tension here too, isn't there? We have to address the elephant in the room. The sources mention the incest undertones.
We do have to talk about it. It's something modern readers often clock immediately and feel a little uncomfortable with.
Well, yeah. Mr. Knightley is 37. Emma is 21.
That's a 16-year age gap. And he's known her since she was a baby. He says in the text he held her in his arms when she was an infant.
And his younger brother is married to her older sister. So they refer to each other as brother and sister throughout the entire book.
There's a line where Knightley actually has to say, "We are not really so much brother and sister as to make it at all improper."
Which implies they are a kind of brother and sister. It's Austen acknowledging the extreme closeness. Now, historically, marrying your in-law's sibling was common. It was a good way to keep property and money consolidated in the family. It wasn't seen as weird in 1815.
But from a psychological perspective, it emphasizes that Knightley is a father figure to her.
Yeah.
And he needs to be. Because Mr. Woodhouse, Emma's actual father, is weak. He's essentially a child himself. He worries about cake making people sick. He can't protect Emma. Emma spends her life protecting him from drafts and bad news.
So Knightley steps in to fill that void. He guides her reading, he scolds her morals, he is the surrogate father.
The text seems to imply that even a woman as powerful and independent as Emma eventually seeks that stabilizing male authority. She swaps a weak father for a strong husband-father. It's a dynamic that makes some modern feminists uncomfortable, even if it fits the romantic conventions of the time.
Before we get to the resolution of that relationship, I want to take a quick detour to the Irish question. I saw this in the notes and thought, wait, Ireland? What does Ireland have to do with this very English village?
It's a subtle but really sharp bit of social and political satire. Jane Fairfax might go to Ireland to visit the Dixons, the couple Emma thinks sent the piano, and the characters in Highbury treat Ireland like it's on the moon.
Miss Bates talks about the Ballycraig estate,
which is likely a reference to Ballycraig in Northern Ireland. The analysis we have suggests Austen is satirizing English ignorance and prejudice. They view Ireland as strange, or a province, barely civilized, when it was, in fact, a kingdom. It's another layer of Highbury's insularity. Anything outside their 16-mile radius is alien and suspect territory.
It just reinforces that these people live in a very tight bubble.
A very English, very wealthy, very self-satisfied bubble.
Speaking of bubbles, let's jump forward about 180 years to another wealthy bubble. We have to talk about Clueless.
We must. You cannot discuss Emma in the modern age without discussing Amy Heckerling's 1995 masterpiece.
I feel like for a certain generation, Clueless is the story. Cher Horowitz is Emma Woodhouse.
It is a brilliant adaptation because it understands the core of the character and the plot mechanics perfectly. Cher is the queen of Beverly Hills. She's rich, she's popular, she lives with her doting father.
And her father is a litigator, so he's powerful, not weak like Mr. Woodhouse, but he's still indulgent and protective. You divorce wives, not children.
And the parallels are so perfect. Josh is Mr. Knightley. He's the ex-stepbrother, which keeps that family connection intact. It keeps the incest-light vibe, but translates it to a modern, blended family.
And Ty is Harriet Smith, the new girl who needs a makeover. The makeover theme is huge in Clueless.
And it connects directly to the book in such a smart way. In the novel, Emma paints a portrait of Harriet. She literally tries to reshape Harriet's image to make her look like a gentleman's wife. She makes her taller in the portrait. She refines her features.
In Clueless, Cher dyes Ty's hair and changes her clothes and makes her exercise. She says something like, it's about control in a world of chaos.
Exactly. Both Cher and Emma use people as dolls because they want to impose their own order on their world. If they can make Ty Harriet perfect, then the world makes sense.
I want to talk about the character of Christian. In the book, Frank Churchill is straight, just secretive. In Clueless, Christian is gay. That feels like a massive change. Does that break the adaptation?
It actually saves it. It shows how deeply Heckerling understood the novel structure. Think about the structural problem. In 1815, a secret engagement is a huge scandal. It ruins Jane Fairfax's reputation. If Frank is secretly engaged, he is fundamentally unavailable as a romantic partner.
Right, it's a real barrier.
But in 1995, Beverly Hills, nobody cares if you're secretly dating someone. There are no stakes. So how do you keep the guy unavailable to the heroine, but keep the heroine clueless about why he won't kiss her?
You make him gay.
Exactly. To keep Frank Christian unavailable to Emma Kerr, but keep her confused and misreading all the signals, Amy Heckerling had to find the modern equivalent of a structural barrier. Making him gay provides the exact same plot function.
Wow.
Emma thinks they're flirting. He's just enjoying her company while he hides his secret. Cher thinks they're flirting. He's just enjoying her company while he hides his secret. She misreads his interest in Billie Holiday and fashion as romantic interest, just as Emma misreads Frank's interest in village gossip.
That is genius. It proves Heckerling understood the mechanics of the book better than almost anyone.
It preserves the cluelessness perfectly.
The notes also mention the 1996 films, the one with Gwyneth Paltrow and the TV version with Kate Beckinsale. They take very different approaches, don't they?
They do. The Paltrow version, directed by Douglas McGrath, is very sunny and bright. It emphasizes the Cupid aspect of Emma's character. We see her practicing archery.
Right, the Cupid imagery.
It makes her active, competitive. It feels a bit more empowered in a modern 90s feminism sense.
Whereas the Beckinsale version, written by Andrew Davies, gets darker.
Much darker and more focused on class. It emphasizes the class divide. You see servants carrying furniture in the background while the rich people eat. It constantly reminds you of the labor that supports Emma's idyllic lifestyle. It also has these fantasy sequences where Emma imagines things, which really leans into the Imaginist theme from the novel, that she lives more in her head than in reality.
But ultimately, whether it's Beverly Hills or Highbury, the bubble has to burst. Yeah. We have to get to the turning point in the novel.
The turning point is Harriet's rebellion. Her glorious, terrifying rebellion.
Emma has spent the whole book telling Harriet, aim higher. You deserve a gentleman. Don't settle for the farmer.
She's been coaching her, training her, and finally Harriet listens. She comes to Emma and says, you know what, you're right. I do deserve a gentleman. I think I'll take Mr. Knightley.
And Emma's world just shatters.
It's the moment of realization. The text says it darted through her with the speed of an arrow that Mr. Knightley must marry no one but herself.
It's so selfish, though. It's amazing. She doesn't realize she loves him just because she loves him. She realizes it because she can't stand the idea of Harriet having him.
That's the brilliance of Austen. Emma is possessive. She loves him, yes, but she also feels entitled to him as part of her world. She realizes that by empowering Harriet, by teaching her to be ambitious, she created a rival who could actually displace her as the First Lady of Highbury.
She created her own monster.
She Frankensteined herself into a corner.
So how do we resolve this mess? We need a happy ending. This is a comedy, after all, not a tragedy.
Well, we get the perfect happiness, as the novel calls it. The knots are all untied. Emma realizes her feelings. Knightley confesses his, and they get engaged.
And Harriet?
Harriet, it turns out, was never a threat. Knightley was just being kind to her. And in the end, she marries Robert Martin, the farmer she rejected back in chapter 4.
And Frank and Jane.
Frank's horrible aunt dies, he inherits the money, and he's free to marry Jane. So everyone pairs off neatly.
But there is a twist in the Emma Knightley marriage that I missed on the first read.
The gender reversal. It's a huge deal. Usually in this time period, the woman moves into the man's house. She leaves her identity behind and joins his family and his estate. But Emma cannot leave her father. He would fall apart without her.
So Knightley agrees to move into Hartfield.
He gives up his own home, Donwell Abbey, as his primary residence. He moves into his wife's house. In a way, it's a massive concession of power. The patriarch moves into the woman's domain to accommodate her family needs.
That sounds incredibly progressive for 1815.
It is, and it isn't. And this is where we have to look at the resolution critically, as our sources do. Yeah. Yes, Emma keeps her home and some of her autonomy. But look at the social order. Think about the central danger of the book. The danger was Harriet, the illegitimate nobody marrying a gentleman like Mr. Elton or Mr. Knightley. Yeah. That would have disrupted the class lines.
And that danger is averted. Harriet marries the farmer. She stays in her social lane.
Precisely. Jane Fairfax, who is genteel but poor, marries Frank, a gentleman with money, which is acceptable because she has good blood. And Emma, the top of the hierarchy, marries the other person at the top of the hierarchy.
So everyone ends up exactly where the social hierarchy says they should be.
The threat to the social order is neutralized. The classes marry within their classes. The experiment is over.
So is this a conservative ending disguised as a romance? That's the question one of the essays asks.
That is the big question critics have debated for 200 years. Is Austen slapping Emma on the wrist for trying to mix the classes? Is she saying, stay in your box?
Or the happy ending may be a little ironic.
Right. Think about it. Is Highbury any different at the end? Mrs. Elton is still there being awful. The town is still fishbowl. And Emma has simply swapped a weak, indulgent father for a strong, corrective husband who is also a father figure.
A surrogate father, as we called him earlier.
Has she really grown into an independent woman? Or has she just found a safer, more socially acceptable way to be managed?
That is a provocative thought. Yeah. It makes the ending feel a little more claustrophobic than happy.
I think the key is in that phrase, perfect happiness. Austen writes that they had the prospect of perfect happiness. But in Austen's work, the word perfect is often a suspect word. It's a little too neat, a little too clean.
It's a fairy tale ending for a book that has been, up to that point, very realistic about human flaws.
Exactly. But I think we can agree on one thing. Emma, the character, starts as a girl playing with dolls and ends as a woman who at least understands that other people are real. They have their own feelings, their own lives.
She learns empathy the hard way.
She learns that she isn't the only author in the world. Other people are writing their own stories. Harriet was writing her own story. Jane Fairfax was definitely writing her own secret dramatic story. Emma just had to learn to stop talking and start reading them.
And that really is why Emma is a masterpiece. It forces us, the readers, to ask. How much do we really know about the people around us? Are we seeing them, or are we just seeing our own kind designs projected onto them?
We are all a little clueless sometimes.
We are. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining this deep dive. Whether you're a learner preparing for a lit exam or just someone who loves Clueless and wanted to know where it came from, we hope this gave you a new perspective on Highbury.
Definitely go back and read the book, or watch one of the movies again. But this time, watch the background characters. Listen carefully to Miss Bates. See what you missed the first time around.
Catch the clues. Thanks for listening, everyone.